All right, lessons learned from working 50 years with over 25 jobs or hustles. Now, I went back to when I was 10 years old and started mowing lawns and washing cars and babysitting and all that stuff. But I've been progressing along, and this is actually part three. So now I've moved up to I'm looking back, I'm 62 years old. I started working when I was 10 years old. So now I'm looking at the 1990s and I'm probably 25 years old. That's kind of where I'm at. I just went through a discussion and talking about when I worked construction at Epcot in Central Florida, saw a hotel being built, went to go work at a hotel, totally opened up my mind. I was able to be a valet parker and I'm getting tips. I'm parking cars, I'm hustling, I'm slinging luggage, and my mind was opened up. And lessons I learned are unbelievable about commitment and follow through and customer service and being nice to people. And man, when you have all that, they're opening up their hand, their wallet, and cash was flowing, and that's the way it was. And so this is in the 1990s, and my life changed after working at a hotel. That was in 1984 after construction. But I had another turning point. So here I am. I was working at the Lake Buena Vista Palace in Lake Buena Vista, Florida, and which is close to Disney. And now it's near Hotel Plaza Boulevard, Lake Buena Vista Boulevard. There's the LBV golf course, and everything's probably changed by now. This is 2026. But here's a turning point. I'm working at this hotel for 1 year, off in the distance, I see another hotel being built. And I'm thinking, oh man, that's a big one over there. What is it? And somebody says, it's the Hyatt. It's another Hyatt. It's the Hyatt Regency Grand Cypress. And I'm looking over there and I heard that they're going to be hiring soon. Now, I had a good job as a valet parker, but I thought about going over there because I wanted to be a bellman or a doorman and get in on which I was already at this hotel at the ground floor. When you're in the ground floor, man, it's a great time because you get the best schedules, the morning schedule or the afternoon schedule. But anyways, turning point. I went over there, applied for the job, got hired, and went over. And I became a doorman, which at that time in 1984, 85, there were new hotels being built. But as a doorman, picture me like a bohemian policeman. I had a white pith helmet, I had a white starched jacket, black pants, red stripes, patent leather shoes, big thick belt, and I was, directing traffic and greeting people. But man, oh man, I had the run of the place. And I would work in the morning, 7 to maybe 2 in the afternoon. And I think we had 700 rooms. So when you had maybe 400 people checking out, 400 rooms checking out, and 400 rooms coming in, it was chaos. But what did I learn? Commitment. And now the Hyatt was a whole nother level about service, professionalism. They didn't mess around. And you had to be at the top of your game. And I was all of that, all about it. And I made great money in tips. And I was making $50 to $100 a day in tips, sometimes even more. And this is back in 1984 to 1994. I was there 10 or 11 years. My point is, I loved my job. I loved my fellow workers. And I didn't realize till years later that they were my family, they were my community. Now we know what community means. It means the people that you're closest to. So maybe you're married, you have kids, and there are families in your neighborhood that you meet at the park, or you go to the YMCA together and you have a group of people. That's your community. Well, I'm like 24, 25, 26 years old, and I work with 40 people that I see on a regular basis, between people that work out front of the driveway and inside as bellmen, the front desk, and all that. So we had a core group of people that was life changing, and I learned the importance of that because we had to have a good relationship. And sometimes when it came to money and tips, man, it brings out the not so good side of a person, including me. And you had to be careful not to be greedy and to share. But this job was phenomenal. I was able to buy a house at a young age. I was able to do some traveling because working at a Hyatt, you could stay at so many rooms at any Hyatt in the United States for free. If you traveled internationally, I think you could stay for free or at a discount. And me and my friends, we would go and stay at hotels for free in Florida, in Miami, in Sarasota, in Tampa. One year I went to Beaver Creek, Colorado, and stayed 3 nights at Beaver Creek for free, and whitewater rafting, and it was an unbelievable time. But working at a hotel brought me family, brought me commitment, and brought me a stable income. And I was also able to go to school part time on and off, and I was just trying to progress and move on in life. But there is one thing that I do want to share as far as another job, and this one was a hard pill to swallow because while I was working at this hotel, I met a local businessman that I became acquainted with. I became infatuated with. Now, granted, I was a doorman, so I was out front, and there were a lot of people that would come through the hotel that were from Central Florida, that were from the Disney area, the Bay Hill, the Windermere, all these fancy areas, and they would come in. So I would begin to see them, and they started to know me by name, and I'd know them by name, and I would just simply give them excellent service. If they had a fancy Rolls Royce or something, I would let them park up close. And they would give me $5 or $10. But this went on. This progressed for years and years and years. So I had my little clientele, and it was nice. But there was a guy that I met, a local businessman, and he would come in sometimes in his limousine. He had a driver, would bring him in, and the driver would kind of pull up slow, and he'd kind of signal to me to get the door, and I would open the door, and I would say, "Good afternoon, Mr. So and so," and he'd say, "Hey, Kevin, how you doing?" Boom, he hit me with a 5 or a 10. He said, "Hey, just let my limo driver park the car over here." No problem. The limo driver would pull it around, and when he came out after lunch, I'd tell the limo driver to pull around. I'd open the door. Bam, I get another 5. And this happened for years and years and years. Or he would pull up in his Triumph TR6 convertible with Pirelli tires and dual exhaust. And he had the sports car that I could hear him coming up the hill of the driveway. And I knew he was coming. And I don't think I drove that. I just let him park it himself right over there. Or he'd be driving his Mercedes or his Audi. And so one day I kind of struck up a conversation. I said, "Hey, Mr. So and so, what do you do? What's going on?" And he told me, he goes, I I bid on government contracts, and I source them. He had some type of measuring device that he used in a machine shop. So if you look at a lathe that trims a metal to a precise measurement, there was a monitor that would measure it within, whatever, thousandths of an inch. But he would install those measurement devices, and it's very critical to making parts for whatever. But he would do it on military bases. Oh, okay, all right. So one day I said, "Hey, I don't want to be a doorman all my life. I'm cooking out here." I said, "Is there anything I could do to help you, work with you?" And he goes, "You know what? There is." And so he said, "Come on by my office, beautiful office around the corner. I don't know, third, fourth floor overlooking whatever. And so I started to go and do stuff with him. I started to just befriend him. He paid me a little bit of money, and it was just a couple hours a week. But he taught me how to bid on government contracts. And so at that time, it was just like a paperback, and it listed government jobs all over the United States. And that's how you would do it. So if the government wanted to buy some T-shirts or hats, they would have to send it out for bid, and you had to write a proposal, how much per item, was it U.S. sourced, and all these legal things. Anyway, so I began to research and do that and learn how to bid on government contracts. Well, I got one. I got a big one. And he was impressed, and I bid on a contract, and it was a total contract of about $250,000. Now, after we would pay for it and do all the requirements for the government. When it's all said and done, I was supposed to make $5,000. That was going to be my fee. So I'm kind of stretching this out because I have a point, and there's some huge lessons. Basically, we got the contract, we fulfilled the contract, and it took about a year for it all to go through. During this process, I found out that my guy had another contract that he defaulted with a local bank. Meanwhile, I'm still working at the hotel, and he defrauded a local bank out of $1.2 million. And this, what I just said, was in the local newspaper. And he defrauded, and it was a local bank, big bank. Turns out that he got in trouble by the government. They indicted him. He went to trial. He went to jail, and I didn't get paid. I didn't get my $5,000. So the contract got fulfilled, the money came in, but the money went to his wife. That's how I lost all this hair, by the way. The money went to his wife. I didn't get anything. All I did get was I had a credit card that we charged some things on. It was like $2,000. He paid that credit card. But I didn't get my fee. It was a year's worth of work, years worth of turmoil. He went to jail. I got stiffed. What did I learn? Here it is. I learned that I had to bite my tongue. I had to not go and kick his butt or hurt him or his wife or whatever. I had to learn a valuable lesson that when someone does harm to you, you can't take matters into your own hand, because that's the type of stuff that you see on TV, right? A businessman got ticked off. He went and killed his partner or blew up the house or did all these things. And believe me, I wanted to. I wanted to. I was so distraught. I was so hurt. And this guy's in jail. I lost my money. Thank God forevermore that I kept my job as a doorman, and I was still working, and I kept my insurance and all of that. But you know what happened? I had a nervous breakdown. I had a nervous breakdown, and I was 25, 26 years old, and I my whole body shut down, and I was in bed for like 10 days. And in this process, in this all this turmoil, I would lay in bed at night and just think of ways that I could, you know, get revenge, take revenge and go and make something happen. But I learned something. In my desperate moment, I found God. God interrupted my life. And I realized that I was broken. I was a mess. I was hurt. I was angry. I was in bed. And I cried out to God. And I just said, God, I need help. And it's at that moment where I realized that God answered me and he heard me. And I from one moment I didn't believe in God. The next moment I did. I believed in Jesus Christ. And yeah, I was at the end of myself. Yeah, I was ready to go kill somebody, but I had a breakdown and I was at my darkest moment. And it's there where I realized that God is real. And I began to just go with that and go with this new peace or this new desire that Jesus Christ is real. So I had to forgive this guy because I learned that if Jesus forgave me of all my sins in my life, I had to forgive this guy. And you know what? That's what I did. I forgave him. I said, Jesus, when I asked Jesus into my life, he came into my life and transformed me. And then I realized a couple of weeks later, like, oh my gosh, I got to forgive this guy, this businessman. Because if I don't, it's going to kill me. It's unforgiveness will rot you from the inside out. And I realized it was killing me. So I said, Lord, I said, I forgive this man. I forgive, and I said it a million times until I received it, until it became real and in my eyes and my ears and my spirit, where I realized, you know what? I forgive that guy. I do, and I feel it. I felt a peace. Oh, crazy. This guy owes me 25 grand and a big part of my life. So I now had the knowledge and the revelation and the peace as the a manifestation that I couldn't describe. So he got out of jail a couple years later, and I found out he was home. I still had his home number, and I called him one day, and he answered the phone. I said, "Hey, Mr. So and So, this is Kevin." I said, "You know what? You hurt me. You hurt me big time. But I recently accepted Christ into my life, and I realized I have to forgive you." And I said, "You know what? I forgive you. You don't owe me anything. You don't owe me anything. I don't want anything. I forgive you and I release you. And I speak blessings over you." And then he said, "Wow." He says, that's amazing." And he started to say some other things and I couldn't even hear it. I didn't even know what he was saying, but I said, "I forgive you." It was amazing. Okay, you got to go to part 4 to hear the rest.